Hi everybody, here we are for round 2. Ding ding. Does feel a little bit like a round in a boxing ring sometimes, life of late. But sorry it's taken so long for part 2. Especially after my bravado about I'm going to try and do this bi-weekly maybe, the reality of life has had different ideas for me, because yeah, sometimes I feel like I'm in moving traffic on a daily basis, and so getting round to filming this and editing it and putting it up has been more of a challenge than I hoped. But like with anything, the more you do it, the easier it'll become. And this is my second time because I just recorded one and there was no sound, so there you go. But I will not be stopped. The response to the first video, it was one. I had to split it in two because I didn't have a verified YouTube account, so I had to put it in two. But it turns out it was very easy to verify that account, and now I can stick the whole thing up. But anyway, you live and you learn. The response has been really overwhelming, really positive. The messages that have come in through all the different channels, emails and texts and Twitter messages and Facebook messages and Instagram messages and all that has been really overwhelming, and it's inspiring, because that's kind of the point. Yes, this is a vlog for me to process, and in doing so to fully, to be kind of full frontal about where I'm at, and what it means and what the anxiety is and the vulnerability is, and to look at that and discuss it and be present to it, as opposed to my previous modus operandi 20 odd years ago, when I split up. And I know, even as these words leave my mouth, the fact that I'm going through this again in much the same way, with similar, very different, but similar machinery involved, if you like. It's kind of, anyway, but how I handled that way back then was, as my conditioning would dictate, my upbringing anyway, was just plough on. And I did plough on, and people were patting me on my back, and do you know what? I was patting myself on the back, going, I'm handling this, it's brilliant, it's fine, and it's okay, and it's a painful event, but I moved out, I'll walk away, I'll rebuild my life, you have everything, I've got nothing. And I did. I walked away from that relationship doing all the right noble things, and I didn't process in the way I should have, and it took longer. And maybe now I am older, obviously, maybe less resilient in that respect, and so I want to be present to this, and acknowledge where I'm at and what I'm going through and how I feel. And in the hope that it helps me through this process, but also in the hope that perhaps it can help other people. And based on some of the chats that I've had, it's been an opening, which is what I wanted it to be. I've had people, different kinds of people messaging, men and women. Well, one woman said that she made her sons watch it, and one of her sons suffers from anxiety about life, and the father's way of dealing with it, which I fully am familiar with, is the just man up, come on son, stop sucking up to your mum, come on, and that kind of brusque approach that's in me, that I'm guilty of, I have done myself, as a trigger sometimes, without being fully conscious of the damage that can cause. And so that started a conversation with this woman and about her son, and I think that's brilliant. And she wasn't even giving the husband, the father of the boy, a hard time, because he's from farming stock, I think, originally, and so he's been brought up in that environment. But it's something we all do, not just men. I've seen women do it too, but I do think it's a kind of male affliction in the most part. And I get where it comes from too. I get that there was a time in our lives in the not too distant past where life was so brutal and hard that there was a field that needed ploughed. And so, sorry, we've not got time for anxieties. If that field's not ploughed before the storm comes in, we're not going to eat. So I get that, that or we had to go down the mines, or we had to go off to war, or we have to, and that's still in us, in our genes, it's still in our DNA to some extent. But in 2020, with the male suicide rate at what it is, and depression and anxiety across the board, I think there's definitely room for us to start talking about how we feel, because we want the world to be a better place, right? And if we are engaging in this process, compassion comes into play. And when compassion comes into play, there's a much kind of healthier chance for better dialogue and a better world. So that's what this is about. Because I have spoke with some people that have been like, oh man, they're so brave, I wouldn't have the balls to do that, good on you, whereas they know, fair play to you, I would never do that. But I do feel, and it's indicated by some of the responses I've had, that there's a shift. We are moving into an area where we can talk about these things and engage with them more directly and make our lives and this world of ours a slightly more compassionate, healthy, vibrant, nurturing place for us all. The response has been healthy, very good. As with all reviews, it'll be the one slight negative or criticism. There wasn't a negative or a criticism, there was just a conversation with one, or there was one other person as well, so maybe it's a conversation and a half, that was like, I'm not sure you should do this, it's very personal, there's people involved, and I understood that and thought about that in the first instance, but I also felt that I made every effort in that first video to not attack. There was no blame. I hoped and wanted to authentically talk about what was happening, without there being a blame or attack. And I think, and I've reviewed it, I hope I kind of did that. There was no, that was not my intention. But in so doing, there is personal information out there in the world, but it's not information that anybody should be ashamed of. It's just part of life, right? It's just the stuff that happens. But the one concern was that maybe I had revealed information about my wife that she might not have wanted, and I hadn't given that full. I hadn't fully thought about that as much as I could have. In having a discussion with her about it, she felt that was me, it was fair. She felt I was okay, it was me attacking her, and she kind of felt that was fair, she's done this to me, but that wasn't the intention at all. I never thought about that, because everybody who in the inner circle they know, our closest family know, our closest friends know, so there's second tier, third tier friends and colleagues that might not have, and who have learned that way, but in discussing it, it's not a big deal, because there's nothing to be ashamed of, and there's even perhaps a fringe benefit in it. It's safe to having to have a million conversations with people, but had I given that a bit more thought, I might have been more delicate with it. But my argument against it was that because this is the second time that this has happened to me, and I'm using this to process this very difficult time, I needed it to be authentic, and I couldn't generalize. I found it that'd be me tying myself up in knots. I'm pretty flexible, but that'd be me doing a kind of level of mental acrobatics that wouldn't serve me or the cause of this. So that I kind of took on board, and I hope if anyone did see that and felt that that's what I was doing, I want you to be safe and knowledge that wasn't my intention at all. And so I'm sorry if you felt that I was trying to be divisive with it, because I'm not. I am really navigating this the best way I can, and hopefully for the betterment of everyone, really, but yeah, so that was that. That's part. We're moving on, we're processing and getting through. I am still trying to do some of the things that I talked about in the last film, the meditation, the gym. I've been rubbish with my meditation this week, and I feel it, like that whole brushing your teeth thing. Like I feel like I've not brushed my my inner teeth, because just life has been difficult. I managed to get back to the gym, and I've been enjoying that. My sleep, and I know what it is. All of this is me trying to process anxiety and fear, and the anxiety that I have, that feeling in my tummy that makes it difficult for me to go to sleep, or that comes in waves as I'm walking the kids to school or home from school, or that can come at any time. It's just anxiety about the future, about where I'm going to be, where I'm going to live, will I be in a relationship again, who am I going to be in this, because it's unexpected, I didn't see it coming, I didn't plan for it, all those kind of things. So that's kind of roughly what it's about. That's the thrust of it. And so how am I dealing with that? What do you do? Last time I just did the classic, plow on. Whereas this time, no, let's grow from this, and not resist too much, which is what I have been doing too, is trying to resist where I'm at. And what's that mean? How does it go? Suffering comes from resistance. Yeah, accept, resist, and you will suffer. Accept, and you will grow. So I'm trying not to resist, and therefore suffer. I'm trying to accept and grow. And so, so the point of this is to look at different things each week. And this week I just thought I'd talk briefly about relationships, and that's way too big a subject to handle right now, so it'll be in several parts. But in looking at my relationships and how I've been in my relationships, I wanted to look at what is it about me why has this happened twice. And I know there are friends of mine that say, "Mate, it's coincidence." It's not just coincidence, right? Lightning doesn't strike twice in that way, in the same kind of way, almost in the same location. And if it does, you got to look at it, right? And so I as I think I said in the last video, as my therapist said, have you considered that you create such a safe, stable environment for your partner to find out who they are and all that wonderful stuff? It's a possibility, it's a theory, it kind of has some merit, some weight. And the other flip side of that is, what is it in me that finds these particular women attractive? These women that are obviously, have, that inside them, that question, that they question sexuality. Is there something in that, or is that just happened because I don't know if they felt that all these years ago? It's just something that's emerged in, it so happens, a long-term relationship with me. But yeah, so there's part of me that finds these particular kinds of women attractive. I think there's some value in looking at that. And what came up in therapy one time was me going, is it, I have been so influenced by the feminine in my life. I was brought up single-handedly by my mum, me and my brother, and single-handedly, no support, no uncles, aunties, grandparents. Up in the north coast of Scotland, my dad was absent, and when he was present, he wasn't a father. And I get on well with him now, and I love him. But again, it's an honest, authentic telling of the tale. I'm not going to redress it for anyone. But she did that single-handedly, all by herself. And having brought 4 kids up, or being a father to 4 children and 2 younger ones now, and knowing the work, the labour, the exhaustion, the emotional dependency, and the depths you have to plumb to be able to pull that off. Well, to have done that completely on your own blows my mind, and I don't know how my mum did it, and I maybe don't tell her enough how much I love her, and I'm inspired by her and what she managed to do, and the sacrifices that she had to make in her personal life and her emotional life to get through and bring 2 boys up who, without patting ourselves on the back too much, too badly maybe, are doing okay. We've got our challenges and our flaws, but 2 healthy boys living their lives and having the grandchildren and everything else, which she's done okay, and she should be really, really proud of that. But anyway, to tie it back to this, what is it about me? What is it in relationships? I think another podcast we can go into the nature of relationships a bit more, but looking at how I have found myself in these two relationships and how I have been in these relationships, certainly towards the end, that created a space for the divergence to happen, for the distance to grow. What was that about? And I talked about that I checked out to a certain degree, that I was on autopilot, and I wondered what that was. And it ties to my upbringing, to my anxiety, to not wanting to be present to what you're really feeling. Don't spend any time in what you're really feeling, because everything's okay. Just keep going, and then something seismic happens, and then you become present, and that's where the growth happens. So we should be up for that, embrace that. But there was a book. It's been on my shelf for 20 years. I read it 20 years ago, and it was an amazing book. But it's amazing how also you can, like I said in the last one, interpersonal and into growth. This is a book that I've read all these years ago. It was written in 1994. I just checked today. It's been on my shelf all this time. Called Manhood by Stephen Biddulph. And great. It has stuck with me. I still quote bits of it anyway, so it did work. But so much of it must have also drifted away and slid off my consciousness. Because if it hadn't, there's a chance I'd still be in that relationship. Perhaps, perhaps not either as well. But to operate in the area of responsibility, which is all we can do. We can't control what happens to us in life, but we can control our response to it. Yeah, that's the only place we have agency is, and how we deal with what happens. What's our reaction going to be? And so, in reacting to this and trying to find a way through that I get some growth from, it's brought me back to this book that I took off the shelf today, and because I'm trying to reach out to this guy Stephen Biddulph, because I'd love to have a Skype interview with him. He must be pretty old now if he wrote this in 1994. That's a photo of him on the back. You can see that with the little, with his glasses and stuff. It looks like a sweet guy. But so relationships, looking at my relationship with women and what that means, and I talked to my therapy that there was like, what is it of me that finds these kind of women attractive, and do I have a distrust of men? Because I had realised that I was not investing in my male friendships as much. I had them all there, all my mates and good friends I can rely and depend on, but I was just slowly, not being present to them. And I noticed that at work I'd always end up maybe having more fraternity and connection with women. And what's that about? So with that thought in mind, and the fact that there was something in me that gravitated more to the feminine than the masculine, I opened this book, as so often happens with books and ideas. They come to you when they need to come to you. I open it at this page and I read that bit there straight away. Don't read anything else, go straight to that bit. And this bit is an extract from a book At My Father's Wedding. John Lee, if he wrote it or he was in it, I don't know. I'm yet to find out what At My Father's Wedding is, but this is the piece, right? So if a man can't trust anyone with a cock to be caring, compassionate and considerate, he looks towards the other gender for his emotional support and for models of behaviour. The mother is more available, softer, and will even listen to him sometimes. He turns to the feminine for comfort, nurturing, understanding and love, and makes his life circle around women, always watching and valuing their every word, gesture and movement, which he may imitate later, which then usually attracts other women, like his mother, to him. I mean, that just is pretty bang on, if I think about the women that I've gravitated to, and that have gravitated towards me too, the feminine, and how I have, because another friend very jokingly said, after I talked about the idea that I create such a safe, stable environment for my partner that they can find out who they are, and then the flip side of that going, well, I'm obviously attracted to women who are attracted to other women in some level. The flip side, as my friend jokingly said, was also, what do they see in you? You're obviously the closest thing to a woman they can find with a cock. you know, and they're right. Maybe that's it, because I've always felt I am articulate. I've been at peace with my feminine side. I am not overly masculine in that respect. I'm not a guy that's beating women up, going down the pub, going to the boozer, going to the football at the weekends. I'm not overly traditionally masculine in that way, and I've always been kind of proud of that feminine quality that I have. But that makes so much sense, right? He turns to the feminine for comfort, nurturing, understanding, and love, and makes his life circle around women, always watching and valuing their every word, gesture, and movement, which he may imitate later, which then usually attracts other women, like his mother, to him. That seems to strike a chord. So, you know, I want to talk about relationships much more broadly and in more depth, about who we are in our relationships and what they mean and how we give ourselves to them or don't, what we hold back and what we give, what we get out of them. What is it, our long-term monogamous relationships even sustainable? Are relationships there for brief periods of time for us to grow and then for us to move on from? Where does this model of monogamy come from? You know, I read something about it being back in caveman days. It was just, you know, fact that it was survival. You know, the pack and a partnership had more chance of surviving than people on their own. So there was a need to be in a partnership. And then you go through industrialization into the 1900s and the 20s, and now here we are in 2020, where we are surrounded by kind of consumerist culture that you can just, and that was definitely one of my criticisms to my wife recently, in the thick of it all, was just like, you're just chucking this away for something new. And there is a bit of that in it, I'm sure, right? It's more profound than that, of course, and there's bigger things at stake than that, but there's in 2020, does the idea of a long-term monogamous relationship hold up in the face of what it means to be human and the choices that are available to us now? So I want to talk about all of that, and I can't talk about it on my own, so I hope people will wade in here. So I don't want these to be as long as it was. It probably is now. I've probably waffled so much, but I hope it's beneficial for more than just me. For me to be able to have this space to talk about where I'm going and what's happening is invaluable, as well as everything else that I'm doing. So, you know, I'm grateful for you being part of that conversation, and for those of you that shared it or joined or liked the Facebook page or the channel, subscribed or whatever. Maybe I'll get more technical with all that kind of stuff, because I'm definitely just meandering around like a drunk man in a circus right now with it, but I'll get my head around it and promote it properly as I progress through it. But for those who have helped with that and shared it and retweeted it or subscribed, brilliant. I'm going to end on a good note, right? So one of the other books I'm reading is Conscious Uncoupling, and made famous by Coldplay, Gwyneth Paltrow and Chris, whatever his name is. We're not going to talk about Coldplay in this. There's some things we shouldn't talk about, and that's definitely one of them. But the point of this, as I mentioned at the front, there was no attack or blame in these videos. There's no cheese down that tunnel. It needs to be, our relationships and our breakup of relationships needs to be as respectful and dignified, as honourable as they can be, if we want the world to be in a better place, and if we want to relate to each other in healthier, more compassionate ways, we need to, take as many steps as we can to achieve that. And this book is one of them. And about, the Conscious Uncoupling, 5 steps to living a happily even after. And I know it's not easy. But neither of us been as stringent with that as we would like to be. We'll drift, we'll go up and down and left to right, and there'll be times when the animal comes out and the monkey mind comes to the fore and causes trouble. But as long as we can at least try to use these tools to navigate our way through it and be respectful and introduce kindness and compassion, things will work out. I think there's more chance of them working out if those are the principles or the values that we're trying to stick to. So I wanted to leave on a good note. A chapter I read last night had this or the other. In fact, I've moved on. So a chapter I read last week, because I have part of my anxiety about the uncertainty in the future is also it looks at the damage. It's the anxiety about the damage that's being done, and to my spirit, to my mental health, to my ego. Can I handle this? Can I love again? Will I be in a relationship again? Where will I live? Is this damage that I've got? Am I going to carry it for long? How long? All those kind of things. And then I read this little bit by Elizabeth Kubler-Ross. I felt a lot better. The most beautiful people we have known are those who have known defeat, known suffering, known struggle, known loss, and have found their way out of the depths. These persons have an appreciation, a sensitivity, and an understanding of life that fills them with compassion, gentleness, and a deep loving concern. Beautiful people do not just happen. So I read that and I did feel a little bit better, because it is the story of life, right? As much as when you're in the thick of it and you don't want it to happen and you want to sail and for life to be all rosy, you can't appreciate a rosy life or sailing out in a calm sea unless you've been through the storm. So, with that in mind, I feel a little bit uplifted from that and from this whole process. So on that note, I'm going to leave it. I will try and get another one in before Christmas. I will get another one in before Christmas. So I'm not going to sign off by have a good Christmas, everybody. But peace, blessings to you all, to the world, and I'll see you next time.